Welcome to Predictive Analytics for Social Media Marketers, a recipe for success. My name is Christopher Penn, co-founder and chief data scientist here at Trust Insights, a data detective firm helping you find answers in your data. So let's get started. We'll bypass the normal stuff. Today we're talking about social media analytics, predictive analytics, to help you build more impactful, more effective social media. And the most important thing that I want you to take away from this session, if you had no other time for anything else, is this. Analytics without action is a recipe you cook, but you never eat. That is the most important thing to learn and to know. All the analysis, all the data, all the insights don't matter one bit unless you do something about it, unless you do something with the data and bring it to life. Without it, it's just a decoration, right? It's just another binder on the shelf, another thing that you have, and maybe it feels good to have it, but it doesn't bring impact to the business. So it's so important that you need to have this analysis that leads to action. So let's start off with this. What is this predictive analytics stuff? You've heard the term a bunch of times. It's usually mentioned with terms like data science and machine learning and artificial intelligence. What is this? Predictive analytics is exactly what it sounds like. It's using analytics to predict things, to predict stuff. And the reason that this works is because we, humans, are predictable, right? An individual may not necessarily be completely predictable, but as groups of people, we are very, very predictable. We do very predictable things. And predictive analytics is looking at our behaviors, looking at what we do over time, seasonality, cyclicality, trends, and then forecasting ahead what's likely to happen. Now, predictive analytics, we've been doing this for a really long time as marketers, right? We know when Christmas is, for example. It's going to be December 25th of every year. Now, I know there's some holidays, for example, that like Diwali or Hanukkah, where the calendar date may move, but you know that it's going to happen, and so you can predict it. Predicting stuff in general is very, very easy, right? We know that there are times of the year when people are going to be less busy and more busy. What we don't know, and where predictive analytics has its value, is predicting specifically what day, what week is something likely to happen so that we can plan ahead. It's that specificity that makes all the difference between, yep, something's going to be happening, or, well, we know 4th of July is here, or Independence Day is here, or the Buddha's birthday is here. Yeah, you know those things, but what else can you predict, and how specific can you be so that you can time things for exactly the right time for your marketing to have most impact? Fundamentally, predictive analytics is about using the past to predict the future, and we do this with math. Math, the mathematics of statistics and probability, to take past data, look at the variations in trends, and then see where that trend is going. The most common algorithm for this is what's called autoregressive integrated moving averages with seasonality. And some of you are like, well, stop the train, I'm getting off. Right? It's okay. You don't need to dig super hard into the math, right? You don't need to have this formula memorized to be able to understand the mathematics about it in order to do predictive analytics. But you do need to know that it is fundamentally about probability, the probability that something is going to happen. And the reason that's important is because there are some things you can't predict, right? There are certain events called, black swans or anomalies or whatever, which there's no way you can forecast them. Predictive analytics works best on things that are predictable, things that you know are likely to happen. The textbook example that I often give when I'm doing this as a keynote is nobody knew, no one could have predicted on September 10th, 2001 what was going to happen the next day. It was an anomaly, right? There's no way to predict that. No one could have accurately predicted the results of the last presidential election, or when the UK was going to vote on the Brexit referendum, or any of these things that are one-offs. You cannot predict what is unpredictable. Prediction is all probability. So understanding that has a basis in math takes the magic and the mystery out of it and converts it into something we can understand. It is math. So why do we care about this? I mean, yeah, it's cool to know how to plan ahead of things, but why is this important? A couple of reasons. In the most recent Pricewaterhouse CEO survey, CEOs were asked the question, thinking about the data that you personally use to make decisions about the long-term success and durability of your business, how important are the following? And the 4 most important responses here are all about data and our ability to act on it. Data about your customers and clients' preferences and needs, financial forecasts and predictions, data about your brand and reputation, and data about the risks to which your business is exposed. CEOs want to know what's likely to happen so that they can plan, so that they can mitigate risk, so that they can increase results. In the most recent CMO survey, Chief Marketing Officers, it's interesting to look at how wildly variable the use of data and analytics is, right? People are like, I don't know if I should use this or not. And a big reason for that is because, going back to what we said at the beginning, analytics without action is a meal you cook but never eat, right? When we hand just data to a CMO and they don't know what to do with it, they're like, this is great, it's a nice chart, but they don't take action on it, right? Predictive analytics is all about taking the guesswork out of as much as possible so that we can deliver better results, so we can focus our efforts, so we can achieve operational efficiencies, which is code for do more with less. Back to the CEO survey, when they were asked, which of the following activities, if any, are you planning in the next 12 months in order to drive revenue growth? Number 1 was operational efficiencies, which means budget cuts, right? Do more with less. Predictive analytics helps us do more with less by helping us understand what's likely to happen so that we don't plan to spend money when it's going to be least effective, or we don't plan campaigns that are going to not resonate because our audience isn't paying attention. Remember, analysis without action is a recipe you cook but never eat. And that's what we want. That's why predictive analytics is so important, because if we do it well, we will get people to take action. So how do we get started with this? How do we get started with predictive analytics? Predictive analytics, and analytics in general, is just like cooking, right? Cooking is a very straightforward process. Everybody understands it. First question, who are we cooking for and why? Right? We need to know those questions, to answer those questions so that we're putting together the right types of predictions. Imagine you have this lovely org chart, right? Do the people at the top of this org chart need the same type of prediction, the same type of forecast that the people at the bottom do? Of course not. That would be silly. And yet, when marketers use analytics, predictive or otherwise, they have a tendency to try and do like one size fits all. That's never the case. When you look at an organization, if you divide it up into levels and divisions, every one of these boxes in your org chart probably needs its own type of predictive analytics forecast. And the way you get at that, the way you figure out who needs what, is by doing what are called user stories. This is a concept that my CEO, Katie Robert, did for about 10 years in software development. And she says a user story is simply a who, what, why statement that helps outline the needs of somebody when you're building software. Well, predictive analytics and machine learning and data science essentially in a lot of ways is like software building. So if we fill out user stories, we'll have a much better sense of what types of predictive analytics we're going to be doing. For example, if you ask somebody, why do you want a predictive forecast? And the CMO says, as CMO, the who, I can see big picture trends, the what, so that I can plan my overall marketing strategy. That tells us a lot about what needs to be in this person's predictive analytics forecast, right? Take it down a step. As marketing manager, I can anticipate periods of high demand so that I can plan staffing and resourcing appropriately, right? This could be a very different kind of forecast, much more granular on timing, but maybe not necessarily on volume. And if you're a social media marketer, a marketing specialist, as a marketing specialist, I can know what topics are important weekly so I can create timely content. Now you see, what the CMO needs and what the marketing specialist needs are very, very different. So when it comes to predictive analytics, we want to make sure that we are collecting these user stories in advance so that we are building the right kinds of forecasts. So that's step one. Know who you're cooking for. Next, what's the recipe? How are we going to cook this thing? When you look at a recipe, recipes are actually really straightforward, right? There's sort of a what is the outcome you're after, that lovely picture at the top there, what goes in the recipe, and how do you do the thing, and probably some equipment, right? If we refer to our predictive user stories, we can really start getting into understanding what needs to go in the recipe. Like, as social media manager, I can know when people are in the office so that I can schedule the most important content at the right time. So let's do this as a case study, right? Let's walk through the process of building a predictive forecast. We'll start with this user story, the social media manager. The social media manager wants to know, when are people in the office so that they can schedule content that'll be the most impactful? Like a recipe. We know roughly what we're doing. Let's find the ingredients. What kinds of stuff do you have in your pantry? When we're building predictive forecasts, we're talking about data, right? We need that data to forecast from in order to make our predictions. What do you use to predict? This is the raw data. You need numbers and dates to create predictable data, and you need a fair amount of it. The general rule of thumb is, for every one period you want to predict, you need 4 periods of data to look back on. More is better. So if you want to predict a year in advance, you need 4 years of back data to reliably account for trends and seasonality and stuff. If you want to predict 7 days advance, you need 28 days of past data to predict forward. So numbers and dates are what you need to do prediction, but you need to have that 4-to-1 ratio. The good news is, as social media marketers, as digital marketers, as marketers, we have no shortage of numbers and dates, right? We have search data, what people type into Google by day. We have social media data, tons of social media data. We have email data. We have web analytics data. We have ad performance data. We have YouTube data, podcasting data. You name it, we've got tons of it. So we're not running short on numbers that have dates attached to them. We just have to make sure that they're in good condition. So that's our ingredients, numbers with dates attached to them. Next, we need to have something to do the prediction with. And this is where you're not going to like this section. The reason why is that you're going to need some very sophisticated tools to do the actual math. Remember, I said earlier, you don't need to know the mathematical formulas. You need to have the right tools that can do the math for you. So let's look at a couple of these. If you want something that is a comprehensive tool that is enterprise grade, and enterprise pricing sometimes, and has a drag and drop sort of environment for assembling the statistical needs, the statistical algorithms you need to do predictions, IBM's Watson Studio is a great choice. Full disclosure, my company, Trusted Insights, is an IBM business partner. Anything you buy through IBM through us creates a potential indirect financial benefit to me. So FTC disclosure out of the way. Watson Studio is a good environment for doing pretty good stock time series forecasts, predictive analytics. However, the best stuff, you need to learn how to code, or you need to have access to developers or coders that can write in one of these two languages, and a data scientist to help you with the algorithm in order to get the best quality predictions. Now you're saying, well, isn't there something I can just get off the shelf? Isn't there a SaaS-based software company out there that just does this for me? Not really. Not really. I'll caveat that. Not really with any that I have interacted with that are doing a more credible job than the sets of tools that I just mentioned. The sets of tools I just mentioned, particularly these open source libraries, languages, R and Python, they don't cost money. They cost knowledge and time. A lot of the SaaS software companies out there cost you money, and their quality is iffy. I was talking to a vendor at a marketing technology show, and they had all this great stuff about their predictive analytics, and I pulled their engineer aside, and I said, so what are you using? Are you using this SREMA method, or are you using LSTMs, which is a type of machine learning, and I've named a few of the technologies, and the person said, very candidly, yeah, we're using recurrent neural networks. And the engineer said, I gotta tell you, don't tell anybody, don't tell the sales guys at the booth, but we're having a real problem getting much beyond 8 days. The algorithms are just not keeping up. And that made me really stop, like, whoa, time out here. You got a booth and you got sales guys promising, the world to people, and then you're telling me behind the scenes you can't resolve more than 8 days worth of data without your predictions falling apart. That really made me hesitate. Like, okay, you know what? There is, in terms of recommendations, like, why isn't there anything off the shelf? Well, there is. I don't know that I would trust it. I would rather you invest the time and effort into either using Watson Studio or using R or using Python as languages. So that's the tools you need. And again, there's not a lot that I think is super awesome right off the shelf, right? But there are a lot of super awesome tools that you can use to cook with. But it's kind of like, you can't buy the frying pan, but you can go to this lovely iron forge and make your own frying pan. Takes a little more expertise, takes a little more time, but in the end, it will be yours, and we'll have your secret sauce embedded in it, which is awesome. So, we got the recipe. We know who we're cooking for. We've got our ingredients. We've got our utensils. Time to do some preparation. We've got to prepare our data. When we're doing predictive analytics, remember, remember that user story. I'm a social media manager. I want to know when people are going to be in the office so that I know when to time my campaigns. That's our use case we're working against. A big part of analytics, a big part of data science, is understanding humans, understanding people. If we can forecast specific words or phrases that could indicate whether somebody was in or out of the office based on their behavior, we could get some very robust forecasts. So, what's something that people would talk about? What's something people would ask? I love search data. I love search data because even though we're talking about social media, people will type things into Google they will not say to other people. They certainly not say out loud, and they definitely won't post on public social media. There's a great book a few years ago called Everybody Lies. All the questions that people ask Google that, again, they wouldn't say in person. So what could we ask? Or what can we find out what other people ask? Well, here's a really good example. Out of office. When people search for Outlook out of office, or out of office message, or Gmail out of office, what are they asking? They're asking, how do I turn this feature on so I can do what? Go on vacation, leave the office. So if we could understand all the different ways people could ask Google that question, and then take the data from that, from these hundreds of variations, that would be a robust data set to understand when are people going to ask these things, when are people looking for these things. And if you look here at this 5-year forecast, 5-year back data from Google Trends, you can see there's very clear seasonality about when people are not going to be in the office. So this is our preparation. We need to get this data out of search engines, maybe some of our social media monitoring tools, maybe Google Trends, wherever it is we get numbers with dates attached to them, about the behavior that we're interested in. That's the preparation stage. Now, we got to cook. And again, this is where you're going to want to have those expert tools and maybe some expert assistance to use those tools. This is an example from Watson Studio of taking that data we were just talking about, the search data combined with Google's Trends data, which is the purple data asset box, and you drag and drop. There's no coding here. Just drag and drop these boxes together, saying I want to forecast the search volume. And you can see the orange result box there. It says, hey, the forecast is made, and I want to be able to take that data and work with it. This is an example from the R environment. Again, same idea. Take the data in, forecast that search volume. When will people be searching for out of office message, or Outlook out of office, or Gmail out of office? When will they be searching for that the most? Because if we know that, if we know when people are typing that into Google the most, we know they're about to leave the office. And we don't want to be running major paid social media campaigns to them. We don't want to be sending them emails. We don't want to be trying to engage with them on Facebook, especially if they're leaving the office and they're going on vacation. The last thing they want is a marketer saying, hey, while you're on vacation, think about work and think about buying some stuff. Right? That's, again, knowing humans. So these two examples, this is the cooking part, and this is where that expertise does come in handy to be able to run the software or build the model in a Watson Studio environment to get your forecast. Now, what comes out of these tools isn't the most friendly, right? So part of what we have to do is take the raw first run at cooking and refine it, clean it up, make it more palatable. In cooking parlance, this is the test kitchen, right? We know who we're cooking for. We've got the menu, got the recipe, got the ingredients, the utensils. We've done our prep. We've cooked it. Now it's test kitchen time. What did we get? Well, that's what comes out of Watson Studio, right? That's not super helpful, right? It is technically correct. But remember, analytics without action. This is why you wouldn't take action. You're like, what the heck does this say? So we need to take it into a tool that can refine the data a little bit. Something like, in this case, I'm using Tableau software, but there are a bunch of other tools that can take this raw output and refine it. Here, looking at those general terms, Gmail terms and Outlook terms, you can start to see the weeks in the next year. That gray vertical line is the day that I ran this forecast. You can see the ups and downs of when people are going to be out of the office. When those lines are the highest, that means people are going to be out. When the lines are the lowest, it means people are going to be in, right? Because they're searching less and less for those terms. The graph is helpful. The table is a little more helpful, where we can see, okay, what are the weeks when this term's going to be highest? Here in Q4 of 2019, the week of December 15th and the week of December 22nd, those weeks, people are gone. They're not around. Nobody's home. Don't run major campaigns. Looking out a couple of quarters, the week of June 21st and June 28th of 2020, people are gone, on vacation, out. So we know not to market during those times. Flip side, the week of January 12th in Q1, hey, people are in the office, right? That search volume drops really low. That's the week that we want to email them, to run paid social campaigns, to run retargeting campaigns, to do influencer outreach, whatever we can do, whatever levers we can pull to get our audience's attention. That's the week that we want to do it. So the final product in our test kitchen probably is something that looks like this, right? And screenshot this because you can have this. It's our gift to you. These are the weeks for your big social campaigns. The week of January 12th in Q1, April 26th in Q2, September 13th in Q3, October 18th in Q4. Do not plan big campaigns for these weeks. March 8th in Q1, June 21st in Q2, July 5th in Q3, and December 20th in Q4. Now, you may be saying, well, duh, Chris, that's pretty obvious. Week of July 4th and week of Christmas, don't send campaigns there, at least if you're in the United States. Right, you knew that. But have you done anything with that information? Have you taken action on it and said, as you're building out your 2020 social calendar, these are the weeks where we're just not going to do stuff. We're going to do a limited version of what we're going to do. Analytics without action is a meal you cook, but you never eat. So this is sort of what should come out of the test kitchen, to go from this really, really confusing mess of data to more and more refined products until you just have this to hand to your marketing manager, your social media manager, your ad manager, your CMO, to say, this is what's likely to happen. Here's what we need to do about it. Now, this is the walkthrough for an example of how you would use this data to plan your campaigns. What does a more refined, industry-specific version look like? What would it look like if we were to roll this out for something that was more specific to a certain line of business? One of the examples I love to use when I'm talking about predictive analytics is cheese shop stuff. Cheeses, right? Because people know what cheese is. Some people like cheese, some people don't. But suppose you worked at a cheese shop. Think of all the different cheeses that you could have. And for those of you who are Monty Python fans, that's where we're going with this. Gouda, Edam, Casenuts, Brest-Bleu, Broussard, Cheddar. You name it. There are all these different cheeses. Havartis and goat cheese and fetas. Wouldn't it be great for you as a cheese shop marketer to know what cheese people are searching for each week and be able to time your campaigns, your specials, your social media posts, your videos, your walkthroughs to the cheese that people care about that week? So here's an example of taking those cheeses and the questions people have about them and putting it in that exact same predictive analytics framework. We're going to repeat that whole process we went through of get the recipe, get your equipment, get your ingredients, prepare it, cook it, test kitchen it to see for, say, a social media manager, you would look at this and go, okay, the week of January 1st, 2020, I need to have some social content about how many carbs and how many calories are in cream cheese, right? And of course, again, this is part of knowing the humans, right? We know the humans. What's happening in the beginning of the year? People are winding down from the holidays. And people are suddenly really obsessed about the calories and carbs in their food. That's humanity, human nature. So we would want to build content for that week. And then if you go out, just illustrate here, go out to like end of March, and now we're suddenly into like how many calories in mozzarella. What's changing? Well, of course, especially in certain parts of the world, it's getting warmer. It's getting nicer out. People are grilling more, right? And so the type of cheese changes. And the content you would create changes, right? Going out a little bit further down here, how many calories in a bagel with cream cheese, right? That goes up right around that third week of January and then comes up again in April. What's happening in April? In some parts of the world, it's people thinking about vacationing and beach season and looking a certain way. They're going to care more about those things. So the predictive analytics tells us the timing. Remember, the specificity, the timing is so important. If we know that's going to be a thing beginning in the fifth week of the first week of April, boy, we better have our content ready. We better have our YouTube videos scheduled. If we're a cheese shop, hey, like we got low-calorie cheeses here. We got cheeses with lots of that are nutrient dense. So yeah, you'll get some calories, but it's going to be there'll be healthier choices for you. Here's how to make a cheese lower calorie. Hey, you can fry cheese, then pour off the extra oil and have like cheese crackers that are mostly the proteins. There's all these different things that you could do as a social media manager with the data. And what you see here is that we're looking out, if you use the tools well, we're looking out months in advance. Predictive analytics, you can refine this even further and maybe just take the top 2 or 3 questions each week, right? And that's your content. This is something you could hand to your agency, your junior staffers, anybody that would really help them out. Like, okay, this is what you need to focus on this week. The week of December 15th, how many ounces of cream cheese in a cup? What are people doing? Hey, they're making stuff for the holidays. Help people with content that addresses their needs. Meet them where they are. This is so important. This is the value of predictive analytics. You can create content that is months in advance. How many of you have had this problem? You're in your marketing meeting with your team or your agency or whatever. It's Monday morning. Everyone's got their cup of coffee. They're staring at the bottom of the cup going, wow, that went fast. And you're like, so what are we going to blog about this week? What are we going to put on YouTube this week? What's going up on Facebook this week? And everyone's like, I don't know. What are people talking about? Open up the social media monitoring system. What are people asking about? That's not bad. But wouldn't it be so much nicer, so much less stress for you, your team, your agency? Just hand somebody this calendar for the next 26 weeks. Here are the questions people are most likely to be asking using predictive analytics. Now we can plan ahead. Now we can build our content. Now we don't have to rush. Don't get rid of that stress. What are we going to do? You can be a lot more efficient. I remember when I was working agency side, I would watch teams do this sort of thing, this kind of planning, and they would burn hours and hours each week just saying, well, what are we going to do for this client? What are we going to do for this client? What are we going to do? And they lost that time, hours and hours each week, losing that time instead of having this predictive calendar to say, hey, this is what we're doing this week. Other advantage, it gives you the ability to have higher quality content. If you know by the time December 15th comes around, we're recording this the week of November 7th. If we know we're out like here, and what does ricotta cheese taste like? Ricotta's a neutral cheese, right? So it doesn't taste like much of anything. It kind of tastes like tofu, which means it's great for recipes where you don't want an overwhelming cheese flavor. I have enough lead time now to build a video, to get the ingredients together, to shoot a video, to record some audio with it, and to prepare a nice piece of content instead of that Monday morning going, I don't know, let's throw up a quick blog post about this and maybe tweet about it and hope it resonates. By planning this far ahead, you know what's going to happen, and then you can take all that planning and all that content that you've done and load it into a system like Agorapulse to have your content ready long in advance, have it scheduled out weeks and months in advance, using this data, taking away that scramble, and timing it with what the audience really cares about. So that's the power of predictive analytics. That's what I want you to take away. So we've talked about what predictive analytics is, using analytics to predict what's likely to happen, why it's important to end that scramble to deliver higher impact, and how to do it from the data you need, numbers with dates attached to them, the tools you need, these statistical and machine learning tools, and then the process of doing the cooking, the test kitchen, refining it to a usable product, and then giving it to people and taking action on it. That last part, again, can't say this enough. Analytics without action is a recipe you cook but never eat. We've talked a lot about food. We've talked a lot about cooking in this recording today. And I can't emphasize enough, you've got to take action on your data and your analytics. Without it, nothing else matters. Right? It's just a waste of time. So please take action on this stuff. Please do the thing. Use predictive analytics to take away the scramble, to deliver more impact, and to make your life better, and to feel good about the work you do, because you know with great planning, you're going to create high-quality work that you can be proud of. You can reach me at cspen@trustinsights.ai. Visit my company, trustinsights.ai. If you'd like to pick up a copy of my book, I don't know if I had one back here. Probably should. Go to aiformarketersbook.com. It talks a little bit about predictive analytics and a whole lot more about machine learning and AI. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon at an upcoming event. Feel free to close this out and move on to the next thing you want to binge watch. Thanks for watching. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.